All right. Well, we're gonna change tack here, and we're going to talk about one of our favourite people. Okay, everybody loves a bit of Klaus Schwab. Okay, so let's jump into it. What are your thoughts there, Derek? With his step down,
Eat the bugs. Well, he stepped down from the World Economic Forum, and that's really interesting because why did he do that? Well, a whistleblower has come out and alleged that current and former staff have been doing financial misconduct through the foundation.
I can't imagine that.
Including misuse of World Economic Forum funds and inappropriate treatment of employees. This has come out from the Wall Street Journal, of all things, too. They've reported it. And Hilda Schwab is also accused of using World Economic Forum resources for personal travel. Schwab has strongly denied all the claims, and he's under investigation. Basically, what has come out by this anonymous letter that was sent to the forum's board was basically talking about the forum's governance and workplace culture. They reckon that what was going on, they allege what was going on was that junior employees were withdrawing thousands of dollars from ATMs on his behalf when the actual conferences were on.
Right.
And using the forum funds to pay for private in-room massages at hotels.
Of course.
It was also alleged that his wife, Hilda, a former forum employee, scheduled token forum-funded meetings in order to justify luxury holiday travel at the organisation's expense. Basically, they've come out and said, well, I reimbursed any of all of those personal expenses back to the foundation.
Why did it happen in the first place?
Look, and so this has really taken a whole spanner in the works as far as Schwab's involvement with the WEF is concerned. Now, you got to remember, why is this a big deal? Because of the influence that they were having on political leaders around the globe.
And still do to this moment.
And that's why this is a big deal. And not only that, not just political leaders, but business leaders too.
Sure.
And getting them into these think tanks that had a very strong socialist background and push to try to determine the direction of where the globe would go next. What's interesting is who has replaced Schwab, and it's an 80-year-old Austrian-born ex-Nestle CEO, Peter Brabeck-Lethmath, and he's an interesting kind of fella. We've got some footage on him. What's coming to the forefront in all of this is his view on water and the control of water and the management of water. I've got two videos lined up for what he has his thoughts on water. We'll have a look at this first one and go from there.
Okay.
About 50 to 100 liters per day, but not to fill a pool or wash a car. There is a difference. We must transform the way we think about water. By 2025, 1.8 billion people will be living in regions without enough water. Water scarcity is the greatest challenge we face today. And we need to start recognizing water as a precious resource. Therefore, water should be better managed, should be better valued, and has to be better preserved.
Now, this is an interesting concept. This is what the Australian people have been told for a long time.
Yes.
But what it ignores is how much underground water we actually have. We sit on some of the biggest reserves of underground water.
Oh, no question about that.
And the question becomes then, well, who controls that underground water? Who owns it?
Well, I was just interrupt on that. Yeah. Okay, the point what he's just made, I don't disagree. I mean, we should care about water. We should care about the consumption. I do disagree with the fact that, I mean, let's cut the crap. There is absolutely no reason in the world financially, from an engineering point of view, there is no reason why the entire population should not have clean water. Well, that's a farce, right? But, okay, I don't know what this other video is. I'm going to make a bit of a guess about it. So before I make any comment about that, we'll probably watch the video. But Travis, you were going to say something?
Water. I'm going to use the Australian Constitution on this one. The government has no claims to anything that is God-given, which is water. The government has no claim whatsoever on charging for regulating. Even if you have a look at the Water Corp, the way they bill it is they're charging you for supplying the infrastructure and pumping the water to your property. They're not actually charging you for the water itself.
Okay.
So
what about usage though? Why is my water bill, if I water more in 1 month, higher than the other?
Because they're pumping water. It costs them different amounts over different times of the year. So that's how they got around it. It's for the pumping the water to your premise. So one part of the bill is for supplying and maintaining the infrastructure. The other part is that their cost to pump the water to you. You're not actually buying water.
I don't know if I agree with that.
It's all in the wording of it. It's a load of shit. So I hate the concept of a non-government body or any government body that, for that matter, to turn around and say, oh, yeah, we don't regulate water. No, go away. See, Derek, I tried really hard not to use the F word there. So,
there you go.
I like taxing farmers for having a dam. They're doing all the work. They've put it in. There should be no tax on water that's on your property that you've, like, if you're collecting rainwater from the sky, if you've got, 1 million litres worth of water tanks and you're collecting it off your roof, putting into those water tanks, that is your water to use how you see fit.
Agreed.
So, I'm absolutely against any form of water regulation in that regards. So,
well, you've preempted. So let's see what he thinks in terms of water regulation.
Well, I was just talking about Australian policies. This is the stuff that the Greens are pushing in Australia now. So anyway, to the video.
Coming up.
Bei uns ein schönes Lied, Wasser braucht das liebe Vieh, Hollerei und Hollerie, wenn Sie sich erinnern können. Also Wasser ist natürlich das wichtigste Rohmaterial, das wir heute noch auf der Welt haben. Es geht darum, ob wir das normale Wasserversorgung der Bevölkerung privatisieren oder nicht.
So, just for the radio listeners, what he's just said is he's talking about should we privatize the water, normal water for the population.
Yep, that's what he's saying.
And there are two different opinions on the...
Und da gibt es zwei verschiedene Anschauungen. Die eine Anschauung,
the one opinion which I think is
extrem würde ich sagen, wird von einigen
is represented by the NGOs.
Von den NGOs vertreten, die darauf pochen, dass Wasser zu einem öffentlichen Recht erklärt wird. Das heißt,
so what he's just said is NGOs are claiming that the water is a public right. So exactly what I just said.
Well, yeah, it is a public right. It's a human right.
Sorry, I'm just taking into account for people who can't see the video and the translations across the board.
That's great.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, exactly what I said. So anyway, he's calling something that's in our Australian Constitution an extreme opinion. Okay, whatever.
Heißt, als Mensch sollten Sie einfach Recht haben, Wasser zu haben. Das ist die eine Extremlösung. Ja? Und die andere, die sagt, Wasser ist ein Lebensmittel, so wie jedes andere Lebensmittel, sollte das einen Marktwert haben.
So the other option is water should be considered a foodstuff and have a market value. So where he's talking about actually selling water as food.
All right, Derek, where do you stand?
Ich persönlich glaube, es ist besser, man gibt einem...
So, and he just said, personally, I think that's the better option. So,
to give a food
do you want to keep playing the video?
Just a little longer.
Yeah.
Lebensmittel einen Wert, sodass wir alle bewusst sind, dass das etwas kostet und dann anschließend versucht, dass man mehr spezifisch für diesen Teil der Bevölkerung, der keinen Zugang zu diesem Wasser hat, dass man dann dort etwas spezifischer eingreift und da gibt es ja verschiedene Möglichkeiten. Also.
Basically saying that.
Well, look. Okay.
Travis, you want to summarize?
Yeah.
Yeah, so pretty much what he said is under the first option, which he considered extreme, his words, not mine, is that everyone has the right to water. So it shouldn't be regulated, blah, blah, blah. It's just water, do what you will with it. The other option is to have it listed as a foodstuff, like a cabbage, an apple, or whatever. So it has a market value and it should be sold to the market. And then for the government to organise to have it sold to all the areas that don't have access to water, aka deserts, whatever. So I'm assuming that's also taken a step further for irrigation and also development into very, very remote regional areas which don't have the infrastructure for it. So, and he wants a second option.
We've got a very famous pipeline here in Western Australia, okay, that was built a very long time ago to take, obviously, water out to the goldfields because of, the development there.
Well, C.Y. O'Connor.
Absolutely. Famous thing we all learned in primary school here in WA, all about C.Y. O'Connor.
It takes 3 days for water to get to Kalgoorlie.
That's right. My point is, how long ago was that infrastructure put in place? We have tech. This is a very easy thing to achieve. It is a human right to have water. Everybody should have the access to it, to clean drinking water. And for people like, we're talking about, Schwab, we're talking about this guy whose name I can't pronounce, who believes that water is a food stuff. We're talking about people like Bill Gates, who, wants to build a shield so he can control sunlight. Okay. This is the epitome of evil. You're not seeing human beings as what they are. You're seeing them as, basically just a financial source, right? Like, almost pet-like, really.
It's the epitome of the Babylonian system, which is one to control, to rule over you, to cause hardship, the very ruling thing. It's a system that basically we never were meant to live under it. In fact, under its system, it has taxes that tax you and take away your wealth.
Sure.
It also charges interest on loans. That was never the better preferred economy design. We weren't meant to have taxes. We weren't meant to have loans. And God gave us all the resources on the planet to live and sustain life. And now you want to control that and take it away from humanity. Well, we can see which system you're pushing here.
Certainly can. Actually, on a little side note, just as I glance over there, I look at his age. He's 80 years old, okay? Now, this is not having a go at older people. But honestly, why are we thinking about putting the future of humanity in the hands of someone who's pretty close to the end of life here? Let's be frank.
Well, let's put it this way. He's the temporary successor.
Yeah. Okay.
While the board tries to figure out where they're going to go from there. They've got a big legal mess coming up
they certainly have.
They're going to have to deal with, right? So they want, of course, probably the most experienced person who's willing to do the job on there. What's interesting, who else is on the forum's board? And I'll just have to get that information for you. But I was having a look at this earlier today, and it's fascinating who's actually sitting on that.
Yeah, I'd be curious.
I'd love to know how much they're getting paid.
Yeah, it's quite interesting that who's making the decisions behind the scenes.
I find it amazing that the mainstream media, how they just cover up. I mean, there's no other way of saying it. They cover up the history of Klaus Schwab. They cover up where he came from. They cover up so many things that the evils of what these people are doing.
So Al Gore is on the board.
Oh, okay.
He's on there.
Right.
Yo-Yo Ma, Yo-Yo Ma, a celebrity cellist, she's on there.
Okay.
Business leaders like AXA Group CEO Thomas Berbel and Accenture CEO Julie Sweet, they're on the board. So that's really interesting. Of course, they're really facing a real PR problem as well outside of this, because remember that there was little trust regarding them. Schwab actually came out and said, Klaus Schwab, we're facing big problems in terms of trust. And then if you actually look at the speeches that Trump did at the beginning of this year, and also Milei from Argentina, blew it apart, absolutely blew them to smithereens in terms of the agenda. And you had people on panels saying, Trump's won. Trump's actually what we've been working for all these decades has actually pulled the rug from out. It's not in those words, but that's what they were saying. Trump's won. And this man has survived a bullet, all these lawfare suits. He thinks he's invincible, and he's gone ahead and done all this stuff. The globalists are scrambling, and the actions that Trump's doing with, of course, all the terrorists is just put their whole agenda, the globalist agenda, in an absolute panic.
I don't like socialism or communism in any way, shape or form, but I do want, how do you say this? I really want the general public, I want the population, I want the numbers to literally turn on these people. People have got to actually realise the power that we have as individuals, but certainly as we bring ourselves together. And I don't want to live in any socialist utopia. I love a good free market economy. But these people and the control and the evil that's taking place, I just wish people would stand up to it. We've got an election coming up, it's going on right now, okay? And I see people going and voting for the Greens, and I just think, there's no nice way of saying this, okay? Actually, I'll make it sound as nice as I can. are you all there? Are you mentally impaired? If you are voting for the Greens, right, who are just, quite frankly, such an evil party, you see what's going on with the Labor Party and these agendas, and you know what they're destroying children. Okay, they're cutting children's genitals off. They're doing all sorts of things like that. It's all control, control, control. Well, we have an opportunity to change things. We have the opportunity to make the vote, and people are still thinking, oh, I'll vote for the Greens. I'll vote for a nice teal independent. It's not really, their name doesn't really end with Holmes Accord. It just drives me nutty. It really does.
Another name on there, Lawrence D. Fink. He's the chief executive officer of BlackRock. He's on there.
Okay, of course he is.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Also, the Her Majesty Queen Rania Al Abdallah of the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan. She's on the board.
Interesting.
Yeah, there's quite a few interesting. AJS Banger, president of the World Bank Group.
Oh, look at Mr. Fink there.
Mm-hmm.
Here we go.
So there you go.
Big names.
There's some big names.
But I mean, Al Gore, obviously, the man who has. I mean,
Greta Thunberg.
Sorry.
He's the sponsor of Greta Thunberg.
Yeah. I mean, the first inconvenient truth, that man. They've been, financially and
fails.
Sorry.
All his predictions were a joke.
Every one of them.
Oh, and Christine Lagarde's on there too, the president of the European Central Bank. She's on the board. I didn't realize she was on the WEF board.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right. Yes, I mean, it's all about control.
You made an interesting point there about the Greens and the upcoming WA election.
Well,
I would like to take this opportunity to make I don't know if it's a bold prediction, but I think, I hope it's a wake-up call for all Australians. I reckon Adam Bandt is going to end up being the Vice Prime Minister or Deputy Prime Minister of Australia.
I sadly agree with you, right? I mean, that's really how it's looking. And I mean, that man is a full-on extremist. He has got, look, and I actually have just posted something, I think yesterday, actually on the Edge Radio Australia Facebook page about his just expenditure over the last 12 months, as far as all of this man who's all about the environment, apparently. Geez, he spends a bit of time in a private jet. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. What a hypocrite. They are literally breaking the fabric of Australian community. It really is in our culture. The Greens are just, quite frankly, an evil party. I really just don't understand. Well, I do understand why people vote for them, because they think they're about the environment. They haven't been about the environment. In fact, I'm personally of the belief that they were just conceived as a promotional arm of the Australian Labor Party.
So after now living in Vietnam for about 4 weeks or so, maybe 5 weeks, I hate to say this, I'd rather a communist country that pretends to be democratic, which Vietnam does, than a democratic country that's socialist. Like the way the Australian system is set up, it's insane, it's stupid. It's got the potential not to be retarded, but the way it's run at the moment, the Australian people, and including us, so we're actually about to go do a big trip. It takes about 2.5 hours to get to Hanoi so we can actually vote at the Australian consulate. But there's too many people that are still asleep. They're just going by with what the media tells them to do. They don't vote Labor and Liberals and preferencing the Greens and Nationals. And you just don't get, for the next 4 years, you don't end up with Albanese, with the Greens as the deputy leaders. And it's just going to be an absolute shit show for the next 3 years. And I think Australia needs to suffer for another 3 years really badly. I think housing is going to get to the point where the government has to step in to build the houses, and you won't have private enterprise in housing anymore. You'll have government-controlled housing like they do in Russia, and that's the state of Australia is going to have to get before people start going, you know what, this is not the Australia I wanted. So that's why we got out.
Yeah, you know what, and you're not the only one. So many people are getting out. People are getting out left, right, and centre. And you watch what the newspapers, like the Kitty Litter Times here in Western Australia, the West Australian, the absolute blatant propaganda they put out every single day. People believe this stuff. It's just crazy. You see so many things that are going on, very positive things going on in the US, obviously, since Trump's come into power, and they'll spin this the other way. We used to have control of our media in as far as like you weren't allowed to own too many newspapers, too many whatever. That's gone out the window over the last few years. This is the problem. The Australian population are completely controlled by this, and when you when you double down by having an ABC who is completely corrupt. I mean, the ABC in Australia is, I mean, I've got audio recording of them absolutely lying, right? Okay. But they seem to be above the law. That's the problem. When you've got control of the narrative, that's why what we do, what so many other freedom organisations do as far as the media go, why this is so important. This is why you need to share, and have these conversations. Because we're about to have an election. We're about to lose. Okay, I feel unbelievably broken about this. I really do. I'm quite emotional about the fact that I think another 3 years under Albanese and banned, right, is going to destroy this country for good, to the point where I'm actually starting to think like you, Travis, as someone who's absolutely Australian to his back teeth, loves his country. I don't even know if I want to be here anymore. Certainly not after the destruction of what they could possibly do in the next 3 years rather.
Yeah. So Australia's just not Australia anymore. America is more Australia than what Australia is.
Interesting, the conversation we had before going to air today.
Yes, very much so.
I see great hope for Australia. I'm going to be the contrarian here.
Yeah, I
think the truth is going to come out. It may get worse before it gets better, because people sometimes are motivated by pain, and then they decide we've got to do something. And I think, the Australian mindset will be, if you start taking away my economic privileges, which have already happened, right? Let's talk about the price gouging that's going on at the supermarkets and all this sort of stuff, where the control monopoly is going on. But if Australians can't, this has been the idol of Australians, is materialism. They want their houses.
Yep.
They want their boat, okay, or caravan, whichever they choose, or both. They want their toys. We
love our toys,
right? They want their holiday every year. Now you start taking those three things, and they want to be able to, let their kids have a great education and do some extracurricular activities. You start taking those things away, the comfortable life, and that's when they become uncomfortable. Then they'll start to move and go, hang on a second, what's going on? But it's its idol, and the idol has to come down.
The comfortable life only exists for those who are have household incomes of 200,000 or more. That's the reality of it.
Yeah, that's what it's become.
Australia.
Sorry, what was that, Travis?
Scott Morrison ran the campaign. Was it Scott Morrison? Labor was going to put impose all these restrictions on the utes, on work utes, and it cost them an election.
Yeah,
so
they're
so we've already seen the Australians rise up. Like, you target the ute, the jet skis, and all that sort of stuff. All they've done is, instead of going directly after the cars and trying to push the green agenda, they've gone, okay, let's just make it so expensive they can't afford the utes. So have a look at me. Like, I had the finances to be able to buy nearly any car I wanted, like, within reason. But I had a clapped out 95 Toyota Hilux, which was the best car ever created. Like, we love our shitty diesel guzzling four-wheel drives. Yeah, it was a pavement princess, and she never saw like off-road, but she could if she wanted to. But that Hilux was absolutely gorgeous. But if they start targeting, like Derek said, the comfortable life, Australians will rise up en masse. But it's not there yet, because you can just go to the mines and get your 250,000 a year.
Well, that's the issue. Take you back to the beginning of the show, right? So China's in a lot of economic strife right now. It's got to basically come up with another trading partner. And you cannot replace the US market. You can't replace 347 million people all of a sudden. Oh, we'll go sell to you. It's not going to happen. The flow-on effect for Australians is, if China goes through big economic problems, will they continue to buy our natural resources still? Will they continue to buy our iron ore natural resources? Because if they don't, that's going to have a huge effect on the mining industry.
Of course.
And so this is where Australia is, in a roundabout sort of way, affected by this, as well as allegiances. So you've got a Trump who's got very, pro-America type mindset.
Yep.
If you're not pro-America, then life could get fairly difficult for you. You don't step in line. So Australia's in a really crosshairs. I was chatting to an old, the old type of Australian, the old Cockney type guy. I was having, the old yarn. I was having a true blue dinky dye Aussie last
night.
Love
it. Right.
And he's seen some stuff over his lifespan. 70 years old, 80, getting on to 80. And I was listening to him. I didn't realize how much China is actually controlling of our natural resources in this country. He was telling me that they are taking our natural spring waters and they don't put it on an Australian ship. They put it straight on a Chinese ship to take back to China.
Is that right?
Yep.
Okay.
They're getting water out of here. All the farmland that they're buying and this sort of stuff, they produce it and put it straight on a ship back to the home country. Of course, we know about the airport back up north of the country.
We do.
That some are trying to regain control of that. But this is what's going on. And there's a fascinating case study, which Travis, you alluded to earlier today, what's going on in terms of the legal battle against China in the United States. It's the state of Minnesota, I think it is.
Pretty sure it's Minnesota.
Yeah.
Missouri?
Or Missouri.
Sorry.
Missouri. Do you want to dive into that a bit more?
Yeah, so
I've been following that story.
Just by the time, that's all. So the state of Missouri sued China, the government, like the CCP, for the release of COVID. And the way that they actually won, found out evidence that China was stockpiling PPE equipment. And because of that, it caused the price of PPE equipment to fight COVID to go through the roof. So what happened is they turned around and sued them for the damages because they knew it was there. They had an obligation to report it to the world. They knew it had got out, but they didn't do it. So the judge ruled in their favor. And so in Missouri, this is a bit which is really interesting, is they've turned around and gone, and I did a 3-part video series about this before, saying to do the exact same thing, sue China for the damages. When they refuse to show up and you get awarded the win, just start taking all their assets. So in America, because even though the court battle was, and this was a 3 or 4 year long, it was a big court battle. So they don't have, I think it's $260 billion worth of is what the payout is. They don't have it all in Missouri. So they're actually confiscating property, not only in Missouri, but all the other states around America.
Okay. How can they do that? Yeah. But all right. Okay.
Well, they can. It was ruled in their favor. They refused to pay, so just start taking their assets. Anything that's a state-owned enterprise, they can just go, bang, that you're state-owned, we're taking you.
Oh, I love that. I really do. I mean, if they're not going to pay the bill, right, and they've been found guilty of exactly what you've said in a court, then hey, get your cash.
It goes even further, though, like when you start going down, I don't know if you can call this conspiracy theory, because there's a heavy concentration of Chinese-owned land right next to all the military bases around America.
It's interesting.
So they're the ones they're targeting first to get them away from the US military bases. So I still believe Australia should do the same thing. It's already proven it's come from China. They've proven that they knew about it and they refused to tell everyone. And then when Australia said, let's do an investigation to where it came from, all of a sudden China slapped all these tariffs onto Australia. You know what? Take them to court, rule it in favor, take the Darwin port, take all the massive farmlands, take all our string wells back, and just take the whole entire lot and tell them to get out. And then declare 51st state of America. Then let's see them try and attack us.
Would our politicians do that, though? Our gutless,
of course not,
owned by China politicians. But as I say, most of our politicians...
Yeah, put them up for treason while you're at it.
Yeah. Treason does not get brought up often enough, honestly. It really doesn't. We need to start, getting back to the old days of hanging people from trees, I tend to feel. Never mind. All right.
So the good news is I'm in a country which doesn't have extradition to Australia.
Is that right? Gee, that was planned. Anyway, last thoughts there, Derek.
No wonder you've been so liberal in your commentary today.
Yeah.
Look, I think pray.
Pray.
You get to a point where you go, there's a lot you can do in terms of setting yourselves up, your family, requesting accountability from your politicians who don't want to be accountable, I've discovered, in the case of my local guy. But, yeah, look, do what you can in the physical, but pray. That's what's going to turn this around. We've got great hopes for this country in the future, and we've just got to keep pushing and believing.
No. It is always great also to have a backup plan. So if you do want to learn how to structure yourself properly to limit the amount of impact that the government can have against you, Derek, sitting right there next to Aaron, does do some amazing courses at bluskyfactory.com.au.